Welcome to the Life and Leadership Podcast, where we discuss business, leadership, and friendship. I'm Zach Goebel.
And I'm Jared Totsch. Thank you for joining us today. Okay, well, here we go today. I'm so happy to be here. We've had a very unique start to our podcast here. We had lots of discussions around age, and
we will release that in the behind-the-scenes videos.
It will not be released.
That will be a lot of fun.
No.
You guys will get a kick out of that.
No, we lost brain cells in the whole previous conversation. So anyways, welcome. We're glad to have you today. Excited about the topic today. It correlates with a little article / journal newsletter thing that we're trying to put out once a month. Just remember, we have full-time jobs outside of this. So if we're a little bit
Jared's
late.
the brains behind the newsletter, and it was very good this last month. So if you haven't seen it yet,
he
check it out.
hasn't even read it because I had to pull it up before
I have read it. I've read it a couple of times actually, but anyway, if you haven't seen it, please go to our Facebook page and check that out. And it's really good about authenticity and leadership.
So that's actually our topic for today. So we're going to talk about a little bit about the article, but really just the key components of the article and about being an authentic leader and what it means to be an authentic leader. This is kind of off the cuff or off the fly. When I say authentic, and we're talking about authentic leadership, just putting it in context and being an authentic leader, being authentic, what comes to your mind?
Okay, well, I hate to say it because it's one of your bullet points in the newsletter, but authenticity, the first word that comes to mind is real, being real. And I think that's a major key to being authentic is being real, whether that's being real with yourself, being real with your team, and not putting on a show and a facade of being someone who you are not.
Absolutely. So when I just think of authentic, I do think of that. The first thing that comes to my mind is being real, the real deal, the real thing. I think of authentic food. I love authentic food, regardless of where it's from, whether it's a Mexican food, a Greek food, something like that. Like, I love authentic food. And you can definitely tell the difference between authentic and the other stuff. Anyway, so that's kind of what I think about. So then when we talk about leadership, so in the article, in the newsletter, we broke it down into 3 key areas. These are definitely not the only parts of being an authentic leader, but it's just 3 key portions of being an authentic leader. And some of this work we did pull from John C. Maxwell, from his book, High Road Leadership. So I don't want to act like any of this is all conjured up on our own.
Sure.
But anyways, one of the first keys that we do say is being real and being the real thing, because we are all human beings. And I think sometimes we try to be something other than a real person.
Yeah.
What I would like to call Instagram or Facebook worthy person. You see people's lives on Facebook and Instagram, and is that really the whole picture? And I know somebody recently talked to me because in my work life I do a ton of travel, and oftentimes I'll post on my Instagram page or my Facebook, my personal Instagram and personal Facebook. I'll post pictures, amazing things that I get to see.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to somebody the other night, and I said, but what you don't see behind the scenes is it was a lot of work to just get to that point in time. I was stuck in airports. I had a long day of work. I might have had a 7-8 hour day at work. And then I'm rushing to these locations to see these cool things because I have a limited time, right?
Yeah.
So it looks beautiful. And they're like, man, how are you getting to see? And 100%, like, I love seeing all those spaces.
Yeah.
But what is presented is not all 100% of everything, but nobody wants to see
you're working and exactly.
Yeah. And just like this evening, like I'll be driving for two hours after we finish here to go to my next location because I have work tomorrow to do. Have to be up bright and early in the morning. And so like these things, like people don't see that. But anyways, I think it's about being real, knowing that you're a real human being. And I think another part about that being real is being able to admit like when you're wrong and your faults.
Yeah.
So
before we get into that part of it, I wanted to mention a book. When you started talking about social media, actually, as you started talking about it, or before you started talking about it, I was writing it down, social media. And that is a huge thing, I think, that plays on the minds of people, is the effect of social media on how we perceive how other people are doing, how other businesses are doing. And there's actually a book by Rachel Cruz titled "Love Your Life, Not Theirs." And have you read
I've
that?
not read the book, but I've seen it.
And she deals with that in that book, where people aren't going to post pictures. Generally speaking, people aren't going to post pictures of the 5 hours that they had to fight their child to get to bed, but they're going to post a picture of the child when it's all snuggled and soundly asleep in their crib. And so it's kind of a false world social media brings out to make you think that everything's great. And I think it's the same even on businesses, for businesses on LinkedIn. You see they're not going to post the bad days, they're going to post the great things. And so you see these businesses and these leaders on these social media platforms and think, I wish I could be like them. But being real is completely different than what you're seeing on social media.
And I think when we talk about being real too, from a leadership standpoint, is that leader in the workplace, that boss, that manager, that person. So then what does real look like? What does being real in the workplace look like? And then that's kind of like jumping into that piece of being real looks like letting other people know that you're a human being.
Sure.
And you don't have to put on a facade. You don't want to come in there bearing all of your flaws and your drama from home and your drama, that's not the space or place, right? For that. But you also let people know that you're a human being, that you do have problems, that you do have things, and you make mistakes, right?
Exactly.
So, and then when you're real as a leader and you're owning up and saying like, I'm a real person who makes mistakes, who doesn't get it right all the time, who makes sometimes the decision I made was not maybe the best. But then you show your employees, you show your staff, you show your teams that you are real by saying, I made a mistake. I really messed that one up and really could have done better. And I think if you strive for that, being real, just this is it. I'm not coming in here trying to pretend to be somebody. I'm not trying to be a social media influencer here at work, look like I'm the perfect boss, have the perfect life, the perfect family, not a trouble, that I make every decision, the best decision every time. Like, that's just not life. But I think oftentimes as leaders, and I know early on and even sometimes to this day, like can get caught up into feeling like I need to put on a facade for people to so that they think the best of me, right? And we're going to get into that in just a little bit, but you think you have to put on this front of no, you don't have problems, you don't make mistakes, no, that couldn't be me, I couldn't have done that.
One more point on that, on the being real with your team and allowing them to see that you make mistakes and you're willing to admit that you make mistakes. I think part of the mindset, kind of an old school mindset of my way or the highway,
right?
That mindset does not allow room for mistakes, because if your mindset is my way or the highway, then your mindset is that you're always right, that you are the one, and it squashes creativity, and it does not allow for the leader to admit mistakes, and which in turn allows for the team to be willing to admit mistakes and
Right.
and grow.
Right. And so essentially what you were doing as a leader, like in leading, you are leading people, and people
Correct.
follow leaders.
Yes.
And so they will follow the lead of that person. And if you are willing to say, like, I'm real, I make mistakes, like there are things I do wrong, your team is going to be okay also being transparent about making mistakes, goofing up, like, hey boss, like, I really messed this one up. Like I shouldn't have responded to the customer that way, or I shouldn't have responded to that family that way, or I shouldn't have, one of those things. But if you are this person that constantly puts on this perfect front that everything's a-okay, you're not transparent, not real with your people, then you will have a team that never gives you the 100% real.
Yeah.
They will always be guarded in their responses when there's probably like a problem or an underlying issue, and they'll be like, well, I don't understand why they took it that way. I told them politely, like I was really, or I handled that as best I could handle it, instead of just being like, you know what, I really could have handled that differently. Yeah. So I know we've got some more areas to cover, so I don't want to just stay lingering on being real, but obviously that is a key point. To being authentic is being real. One of the other key points brought out in the newsletter was pure motives. So coming from a place of pure motives, no intent behind it, no manipulation. Way back in the day, I can think of when I came into leadership, and even before I was in leadership, I always remember sometimes I would see things that happened, and I wondered, like, why are they doing that? And it only takes a few times of discovering or finding out that somebody made a choice or decision from an impure motive, like for personal gain or manipulation or something like that, to begin to jade you, right? But it also made me as a person not want to be that type of leader. I'm not saying I'm perfect, and that that sometimes you don't try to manipulate a situation or try to make it a little bit better than it actually is. But coming from a pure motive, like, you know what, this is just whatever is best for the company, rather than moving, trying to manipulate. This is really what I want to happen. And like, I'm going to make it all so you all agree with me. Like, that's manipulation, and that is not pure motive. But when you make a decision, you just make it out of pure motive. So you're just saying, like, this is what I believe is best for the company, and I'm telling you, I'm being transparent with you. You have anything about pure motives?
Honesty goes a long way. That's huge, I think. And to be completely blunt, I think anyone and everyone will have areas in which the motives are always going to try to push to their side, to what they want. And there are times in leadership where you have to have that. As a leader, most of the time you don't get to a place of leadership without being persuasive and without having that ability to get people, to follow you, and to get people to. And so, there are times where you kind of have to do that, and it's not wrong as long as it's still pure. It's not leading.
Well, and you're being transparent. Like, here's where I believe we're going to for the company. Like, this is what's good for the company, and I'm doing this out of like, versus, okay, I know if I make this decision and this decision, then this person is going to do this and this, and it's going to benefit me here. And like, and keeping that, I think when you get into those situations where you're manipulating, you're like playing chess. It becomes like you're playing chess. And so it's like you're always thinking 3 or 4 steps ahead, and you're moving this one, anticipating they do this. And honestly, that's wearing. I mean, if you're constantly trying to do those things, and yes, in business and leadership, oftentimes it is I had a friend who typically, like, often says it's about chess, not checkers, like, you always do have to be thinking. But if your motives are from like, what can you gain, what can you gain, how can it benefit me, how can this improve me, how can I manipulate this situation so I come out the person on the top. Like that's what we're talking about when we're talking about pure motive. So it's not about the big I in this situation. Like you're coming from pure motives. Like you're really doing things from a pure heart, from a pure space.
Yeah. With manipulation, like we were discussing, Larry and I, my father-in-law, running a business together for many years now. There are times where we will see things completely opposite, and it allows for good arguments.
Yeah, discourse.
Not disrespectful arguments, but good arguments, and usually through those arguments, I may see his side, he may see my side. We may, and usually we, through the discussion and arguments, we're able to find a conclusion that is best for the company, that's best for the future. And, or if it's, those are usually, major decisions. If it's a small decision, may not come to all of that, but that needs to happen. And to have that discourse and those discussions without trying to manipulate it to go to your direction, because there's obviously two different ideas, two different sides, two different mindsets towards it, and usually it's not that either one of them is a bad direction, but it's just finding the best direction and finding the best
outcome and not manipulating it so that like you come out like the person on top, or I've seen people, manipulate situations where they turn it around to make it seem like, oh, they thought it was their idea, but really this is what I wanted. Like I got what I wanted in the end. But I just kind of led them. I only gave them certain pieces of the information in order to, so that, okay, by them only having this bit of information, then they're going to make this decision based off of this, instead of giving them the whole piece, because then they may not have made that decision. And so that's kind of like what we're talking about when we come from that pure motive space, is like having those honest and open dialogues. Like that's crucial and important. Like somebody knowing the other person's perspective, like their motives, where they're coming from, knowing that they're pure. Once again, I don't want to spend so much time on each topic.
We could go really deep into that.
And it has a lot ways to approach it. And all of these key areas, they all intertwine some way or the other. They all are interwoven together. So it kind of sounds like sometimes we're repeating the same thing, but really, they are distinct. They are distinct characteristics.
And I think it's so funny because we've talked about it before, but in almost every one of these situations, it just comes down to respect.
Oh, dignity of the human being.
If each one of us would respect the ones that we are dealing with, respect our team, respect our coworkers, respect our bosses, our leaders. If there's just respect across the board, it'd go a long way in dealing with a lot of this.
100%. Yeah. A lot more joy in the workplace, a lot more happiness, and not to say that there's not tough situations that occur and happen and tough decisions that have to be made, but no, respect goes a long way for creating environments of joy and growth. The last one that we talk about in the newsletter is the character of a person, right? So that is a key to authenticity, is having that strong foundation of quality character. Because when I think about character, I literally think of the word that I just used, foundation. That's the basis for a person. If you have a character of giving, if you have a character of generosity, if you have a character of, I could list off so many things, like that's your core of who you are as a person, having that strong, solid core of character, like you are going to be an authentic leader. Now if your character is not strong and you're kind of wishy-washy, which sometimes it's easy to get distracted. It's easy to say like, ooh, or sometimes we do have character flaws. Sometimes we do have things in our character, like maybe we do want to manipulate situations in our way, maybe it is like we really want to like just tell parts of the story so that it comes out better. But once again, that comes down to character.
Yeah.
Like the character of a person.
You and I have talked about this several times over the last few months. We introduced in writing our core values for our company here a few months ago. And it's not anything different than how we have operated the business for the first 24 years, but it's just putting it in writing. And I think we'll probably discuss this in a future podcast, the importance of putting these things in writing. And the core values, that we chose to write down and to implement and to have everyone on our team, whether they're a new hire or whether they've been there, 10, 12, whatever, how many years, it's something that we are, putting as a foundation. And again, it's nothing new, but having it written down that this is our foundation. This is who we are at the core. And that allows us to say, this is our character. And anything that strays from that character, that strays from that core value, is not who we are. And if you stray from that core value, then you're not part of us.
It gives you something to bump up against. Yeah. To bump things up against when those moments of like, hey, you might start deviating, that like your customers know what it is that your basis is off of. What you are.
Well, and it also makes hiring a lot easier. And so
this is who we are.
Let me break that down. I have right now, I think 7 or 8 applications on my desk, and I had a few drivers or a few applicants that on the skill level were much higher than others, but through interviews and through just discussion with the applicants, I found out that they did not align with our core values, and maybe not too far off. It wasn't like a right away. It was a no way type of situation, but it just did not feel right. It did not align with who we are, who our character is, who as a business. And Melanie, my assistant, was there with me in all the interviews. In fact, conducted some of them without me. We were out of town, but it was very obvious once we got the interview. I remember one specifically. Once the interview was concluded, I said, I don't think this one's a good fit. And she said no. And it was so easy to just say, we can train skill.
Right.
We can train someone how to operate equipment, how to do all of that. That's the easy part. But it's so much harder.
The character of a person.
It's so much harder to find someone that knows the skill. It may be easier for the first few weeks because your training is a lot easier. But then if their character does not align with our business, our core values, then the troubles for months and years.
Yes.
It's just not worth it.
So one of the key things, so you said that, and several years ago we had hired on multiple, and when I say multiple, I mean multiple staff members. And our team, that was one of the things that was very important. We had a certain skill set. Yes, we were looking for certain credentials we were looking for that were obviously must-haves and the requirements, right? But the other thing is we created questions to get at the disposition, basically the character of the person, who the person is at the core, like who they are at the core. Because that's the person we really want to know, because you can have all the skill sets in terms of qualifications, all the degrees, all the letters and numbers and whatever else behind your name. But if at the end of the day you have a very difficult disposition or your base character does not align with what is needed, it could be disaster, because you're talking about disaster for the rest of your coworkers, for the team, for the whole organization, So character does play a huge part. And one of the things, and I don't want to keep belaboring because I know we need to wrap this up, but one of the things we talk about in the newsletter is character over reputation. And John C. Maxwell talks about that, is that the character of a person is much more important than their reputation, because sometimes you have to make decisions based off the character of who you are as a person or an individual. And that may not be the most popular thing, or that may not be the thing that gets the splash, right? And it's character over reputation. So oftentimes, like, great character will lead to a great reputation, but you put character first. Character comes first and then reputation, right? Because you can have all the reputation in the world, you can be known for everybody, but if there's no character, there's no depth. And eventually you are propping up a facade, and one slip up and it's down the tubes, right? Because that core character, like, is not there. And that's what I talk about it in the newsletter, saying, like, I remember when I've transitioned out of other organizations that I've worked for, I've had individuals, whether it be families, coworkers, colleagues, things, come to me and thank me for my transparency, thank me for my authenticity while they worked with me, thank me for those things. And I'm not putting myself in any space or position higher or above, because these things take work. It takes work to be an authentic leader, and there are days that I feel like I do it much better than others, and there are times that I just flop, you know, as a leader, like, in authenticity. And like, well, really messed that one up in working towards authenticity. But when parents, once again, it comes down to character over reputation, and that's what I worried more about. Like, I want to be honest. Like, that's the core of my character, is I want to be honest. I want to be fair. I want to be accurate. And if I make mistakes in those areas, it's not because I don't want to be one of those core pieces of my character, right? And that's what some of them even said, even though we didn't always agree with what you said to us sometimes about certain circumstances, certain things, you know, in the end, we realized, like, you were coming from a good place. And sometimes those things that were hard to say, that I said that were hard, were correct. And they were grateful for them later. But so at the moment in time, the reputation may have taken a hit. But at the end of the day, I slept well, because I knew that I hadn't violated my character, like the core of who I was as a person. So at the end of the day, character over reputation. And, you know, oftentimes quality character does lead to quality reputation. But if I cut short my character, or just in order to make sure my reputation stays good, I have done a disservice to all of those around me and myself. Because when every core value, because at the end of the day, you have to go home with yourself, and you have to go to bed at night and lay your head on the pillow at night. And you are the only person on the planet. Like, you're in charge of you. Nobody else can make you do what.
And I would add to that a little bit, that if you are in a workplace and the core values of that workplace do not align with your core values, then you probably need to find a new place to go. If your core values are honesty and integrity, transparency, and the workplace that you're in does not share the same core values, then, you know, you're not going to bring up the core values of the workplace.
No, you are spinning your wheels as a leader in a space that does not honor that. Is more concerned about reputation than character.
And even if you're not a leader, whatever your position may be, you know, if your character is much higher than of the place where you are employed, then
it's time to find somewhere else.
It's time to find somewhere else to go. It really is.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, you, like I said, you have to live with you. And you are not, if an organization's basic character and fundamentals are not solid, you're not going to change it. More than likely, you are not. The likelihood of you influencing it for the positive is it's less likely. More likely, it's going to start influencing you, and you're going to start finding chips in your character as a person. And 3 years down the road, you're going to be like, oh my word, like
Yeah.
I just told a white lie to cover up that
Yeah.
glitch that we made in that report that we just turned
Yeah.
in, or I just, you know,
Well, and we talk about this with the kids all the time and discuss how, you know, if they've done something, if they've told a lie or their attitude was horrible, whatever it may be, we ask them, how does your heart feel?
mm-hmm.
And does it feel good and clean, or does it feel dirty and nasty? And it's always, it feels dirty and nasty. So if you are in a workplace and you go home and you feel dirty and nasty, I'm not talking about physically, but spiritually or mentally, emotionally dirty and nasty from the workplace that you've been in all day, it is time to find a new workplace that aligns with your characters and your core values as a person.
Yeah. And hopefully those characters and qualities we trust that they're solid, right? So this is kind of interesting. You always are working on yourself as a person. And one of the things that I always try to strive for and work on is being very clear, concise about what I say, that I mean it, that it's true, that it's authentic, and that I'm being real about it and not trying to overinflate, you know, what I did or what I didn't do, or under, you know, putting that. So here's just it's funny, it's a silly example, but it's humorous. So I was messaging you said something about like, what did you do today or whatever? And I was texting and I said, you know, I think I told you I booked some travel, booked some flights, responded in emails. You know, today was kind of an office day for me. And I started to type out like, and I sent some notifications like, or sent some, or scheduled some visits and that kind of stuff. And then I stopped and I was like, no, I didn't schedule any visits today. Like, and I just deleted that and et cetera, because I don't remember all the stuff, but I didn't schedule any visits. And like, for me, I was like, you know what? I know that sounds silly and little, but I was like, that's just a little thing that I need to make sure, because I could just keep doing that. And if you were my boss or something, you'd be like, Jared, I looked at your calendar and I didn't see any visits scheduled.
Yeah.
You said you scheduled visits today and you didn't schedule any visits today. I was like, no, I didn't schedule visits today. And while that sounds silly, so it's something you constantly have to be aware of and working on.
Yep. Self-awareness in every aspect of it, I think is, because
we're humans.
We're human. We make mistakes.
Last time I checked.
we make mistakes. And so, keeping that on keeping your desires in check, you know, your desires to sin, your desires to lie, your desire, you know, keeping those in check.
So back to like those three areas that we talked about, like I said, there's so many more and they're all interwoven, intertwined. But being real, pure motives, coming from that place of solid quality character above reputation, you know, and good character does lead to quality reputation, but knowing that character comes first. Yeah. Those are all, in my opinion, those are some of the ways that a person is an authentic leader. Yeah. Like if you have those key areas, like you're going to be an authentic leader.
Yeah. And this is really good. I think next month we will discuss being an authentic friend and having authenticity in your friendships and your relationships. So
absolutely.
Stay tuned for that. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube, the new YouTube channel. Don't forget about all that stuff. We appreciate your guys' support.
Absolutely.
And share it. Share YouTube, share Spotify, Apple Podcasts,
and like
Facebook,
it, whether you like it or not.
Do it all. That helps us out, helps spread it. And we appreciate it, and we hope that we are being help to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great one.